Congressman Jamaal Bowman pulled the fire alarm in the Cannon building at the Capitol in order to stop Republicans from voting on a stopgap continuing resolution to avoid the government shutdown. Of course, Jamaal Bowman is a Democrat. A Republican wouldn't do this. A Democrat would do this. And the stages of his denial are almost funny if it weren't for the fact that the Republicans are going to let him get away with this. So what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about exactly what he did and what Republicans ought to do and what it means if Republicans don't do anything to hold him accountable. So first of all, I want to show this photo. This is the photograph that the Capitol Police released that shows Congressman Jamaal Bowman. You can see him pulling the fire alarm. We all know what a fire alarm looks like, right? Everyone over the age of 7 knows what a fire alarm looks like. Plus, when you walk up to a fire alarm, it says fire alarm splashed all over it. It usually even tells you if you pull this, the alarm will ring. If you open the door, the buzzer will sound. No one is so stupid that they don't know what a fire alarm is, except apparently Congressman Jamaal Bowman. He's claiming that he didn't realize what this was. So before we get into showing you, see those signs standing around him? See the signs on the door and the sign right there, kind of behind him to his left at the bottom right corner of the picture? Those are signs that say exactly what the fire alarm will do if you pull it. And we're going to read those signs in just a second. But I would just like to put this thought out there for any Republican members of Congress who are listening. What Jamaal Bowman did here is not only a crime, it actually is a crime in Washington, D.C. to pull a fire alarm as a hoax or to do a false alarm. But I assume that this qualifies as obstruction of an official proceeding because the reason Jamaal Bowman pulled this fire alarm was to prevent the Republicans from passing this continuing resolution because it did not include funding for Ukraine, which is what the Democrats wanted. Now, this continuing resolution, you can argue that it's terrible. It probably is. It only funds the government through November 17th. So it's a couple more weeks and we're going to be having the same fight again. I think that Matt Gaetz is going to try to get rid of Speaker McCarthy in the interim, which might not be a bad thing. Just depends on the coalition Matt Gaetz has behind him. Again, we can talk about that a little bit later. But let's just focus on this one single action that Jamaal Bowman took part in. This is obstruction of an official proceeding because the only reason that you would do this is to prevent the vote in Congress, which is the official proceeding of the United States government. So I assume, based on what we've been told by the left and by the Department of Justice for the past 2.5 years now, Jamaal Bowman should be on his way to prison. He should be held in pretrial detention, probably in solitary confinement, and then sentenced to decades in prison, right? Because if you obstruct an official proceeding, if you try to stop Congress from doing what they're there to do, then you are a threat to our democracy. You amount to an insurrectionist. This is what I've been told. So I'm just sitting here waiting for Republicans to walk Jamaal Bowman out of Congress in handcuffs, for the Capitol Police to arrest him, for the FBI to SWAT his house at the crack of dawn, for him to be thrown into a cell so narrow that you can barely sit down and lay down in it, to have his due process completely violated, unless Republicans are only willing for this to happen to our own, unless we're not willing to hold the standard of justice, quote unquote justice, that the Democrats have for us to Democrats who commit acts. This is a violation of the law in Washington, D.C. Again, we'll get to that in a second, but I want to show you those signs. So those little red signs that were on the door that was right behind Jamaal Bowman. Rebecca, can we bring up element 1B? Look at these signs. Do you see how obvious that is? These signs say emergency exit only, push until alarm sounds, door will unlock in 30 seconds. That's what those signs say. Emergency exit only, push until alarm sounds, door will unlock in 30 seconds. I know members of Congress don't have a reputation for being that smart, but I assume they all can read, especially big red signs around a fire alarm. Pulling a fake fire alarm in Washington, D.C. is a crime. This is the language of the law that's on the book in Washington, D.C. I'm going to show it to you on the screen. This is the next element, Rebecca. Code of the District of Columbia 22-1319, false alarms and false reports, hoax weapons. This is what the law says. It shall be unlawful for any person or persons to willfully or knowingly give a false alarm of fire within the District of Columbia, and any person or persons violating the provisions of this subsection shall, upon conviction, be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor and be punished by a fine not more than the amount set forth in 22-3571.01, or by imprisonment for not more than 6 months, or by both such fine and imprisonment. So where's the Capitol Police on this? Where's Mayor Bowser calling for the arrest of this man who violated a law in Washington, D.C.? Where are Republicans saying that they're not going to do anything in Congress until this criminal is held accountable for his actions? And don't even try to tell me that he didn't know what he was doing. We are going to read his statement in a second. His statement is the most ridiculous statement you have ever heard. I'm going to read you word for word what he said. So Bowman's statement denying that he was obstructing an official proceeding. Jamaal Bowman's denial. It's quite the denial too, my friends. Makes you wonder how many people sat around writing this. This is what it says. Congressman Jamaal Bowman released the following statement. I want to personally clear up confusion, he said, surrounding today's events. Guys, we're just confused. Don't worry. You didn't see him pulling that alarm. It didn't go off. You're just confused about what happened. Don't you just love when they tell you right off the bat that please don't believe your own eyes? It's your misperception of what happened. It's not that I did anything wrong. You just don't know what you're seeing. He said, I want to personally clear up confusion around today's events. Today, as I was rushing to make a vote, I came to a door that is usually open for votes, but today would not open. I am embarrassed to admit that I activated the fire alarm, mistakenly thinking it would open the door. I regret this and sincerely apologize for any confusion this caused. But I want to be very clear, this was not me in any way trying to delay any vote. It was the exact opposite. I was trying urgently to get to a vote, which I ultimately did, and joined my colleagues in a bipartisan effort to keep our government open. I also met after the vote with the Sergeant at Arms and the Capitol Police at their request and explained what had happened. My hope is that no one will make more of this than it was. Can't even read this with a straight face. He says, I'm working very hard every day, including today, to do my job, to do it well, and deliver for my constituents. Peace and love. What a liar. Like, this isn't even a good lie. You're in Congress. You should have at least developed the skill of being a good liar. This is not even a good lie. I didn't realize that pulling a fire alarm would set off an alarm. I'm a kindergartner on my first day of school. Of course you realized it. Of course you did. You didn't meet with the Sergeant at Arms of the Capitol Police. They're investigating you for the crime you committed. Good Lord. I expect now we should see conspiracy charges all around for everyone who was involved in writing that statement. So Jamaal Bowman himself and any staff member who took part in propagating or creating or crafting the language of this lie. RICO charges all around for the conspiracy to help him obstruct an official proceeding. Only if we're living in a country with an equal standard of justice, this is what we must see. And this is what Republicans must demand. Because remember, this is the language of the bill. This is the obstruction of an official proceeding statute under which the January 6th defendants were charged. Let's bring this up. I want to read what the text of the law is. Let me bring this up so I can read it word for word to you. Whoever corruptly alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals a record, document, or other object, or attempts to do so with the intent to impair the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding, or otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Sounds like a 20-year sentence to me. 20 years. I don't want to see a day less than 20 years for Jamaal Bowman. He tried to stop this vote that would have shut down the government if he had actually succeeded. Weren't we just told 2 or 3 days ago by the left that if the Republicans allowed the government to shut down, then people would be hurt by this? Families would be hurt, veterans would be hurt, people on disability would be hurt because people wouldn't have the government that they need to survive. Total BS. But isn't that what the Democrats told us? So what exactly did Jamaal Bowman do? He not only obstructed the official proceeding of Congress, he could have hurt the American people who just need their government checks. This is the test for Republicans. This is the real test for Republicans. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to believe Jamaal Bowman? Are you going to let him get away with this lie? Or are you going to hold him to the same standard that Democrats are holding our people? Our voters, our citizens who are being targeted by the Department of Justice under the Biden administration because Joe Biden hates people who question the integrity of the election that put him in the White House. Because he hates Donald Trump. Are we going to let him get away with this? The Republicans should immediately refer this to the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., Matthew Graves, for criminal indictment. If we see anything less from Republicans, and I don't mean a tweet from a Republican, I mean official actions from Republicans. If we don't see them take action, this is one of those moments that tells us what we need to know about Republicans. Do they have what it takes to fight this fight? Or are they just there for the power and the influence and the politics and the drinking with your colleagues after a day at Congress and the viral videos that you can get if you question the right person in the right hearing? What are you there for? Are you there to fight? Do you understand the political enemy that we're facing? Then hold them to their own standards. Hold them to their own standards. By the way, Jamaal Bowman, before he was a member of Congress, was a school principal. Are you telling me that a school principal doesn't know how to operate a fire alarm?